Order. Order. And there will be silence.
The Prime Minister has repeatedly stated that the ULURU statement from the heart literally fits on one A4 page. Is the Prime Minister aware the statement, as released by National Indigenous Australians Agency in response to a Freedom of Information request, is actually 26 pages long, and pages 23 to 26 call for a Madaraka Commission? Why does the Prime Minister continue to be deceptive and not provide information millions of Australians are asking for?
I thank the member for Flynn. The Prime Minister has the call. Order.
I thank the member for Flynn for his question. I do say, as a new member, he should be wary if no one up the front will ask a question, because that is a conspiracy in search of a theory, Mr. Speaker. It is something that has been out there, like a whole lot of the QAnon theories. We have all sorts of conspiracy stuff out there, but this is a ripper. That is the ULURU statement from the heart on an A4 bit of paper. That is it. The first sentence in it is, we gathered.
Now, one of the strengths of Sky is that there's no groupthink here. All of us, all the hosts are free, indeed encouraged to speak our mind. And today, well, this issue with a full ULURU statement versus the one-pager that Chris Kenny and the Prime Minister like to quote, well, this issue spilled over into question time.
Nothing exposes the falseness of the arguments being put by the No campaign than this conspiracy theory and nonsense. They're struggling to get their scares straight. I mean, what role did Marcia Langton play in the faking of the moon landing? There's a whole lot of projection going on here, Mr. Speaker. More projection than a film festival.
Now, I'm all for alternative points of view, but you can't have alternative facts. And no one, least of all Prime Ministers, get to mislead the House. Here's one of the voice architects, Professor Megan Davis, in the Parkes oration in 2018, where she says, and I quote, "The ULURU statement from the heart isn't just the first one-page statement. It's actually a very lengthy document of around 18 to 20 pages. And she'd know better than anyone because she was there at ULURU and she was instrumental in the drafting of the statement from the heart.
A very powerful part of the ULURU statement from the heart is that it isn't just the first, one-page statement. It's actually a very lengthy document of about 18 to 20 pages.
That's Megan Davies, the architect of the ULURU statement, a member of the PM's own Voice Inner Sanctum. But that isn't the only time Davis has told the truth about the ULURU statement and how big and how radical it all is. Here she is again, this time the 2021-2022 Sydney Peace Pride Awards ceremony. This is about 8 months ago.
It's very important for Australians to read the statement. And the statement is also much bigger. It's actually 18 pages.
But it's not just Megan Davis who's called out the PM's lie that the ULURU statement is a simple one-pager, but also his government's own official National Indigenous Australians Agency. Now, if you look at the official website of this agency, under the FOI section, you'll find this document. It's number 2223, and it's the official record of the deliberations of the Referendum Council process, which of course culminated in the 2017 ULURU meeting, the same meeting that of course issued the ULURU statement from the heart. Now, in all, the FOI runs to about 112 pages, comprising 14 documents in total. And it's the last one, the 14th document, that's the one that matters. The one headed up, ULURU statement from the heart, and that document runs to 26 pages, including 3 pages of roadmap diagrams. Now, page 1 of this 26 full statement, well, that's the introduction, and the PM and Chris Kenny insist is that that's all there is. That's the one-pager. But this is what Megan Davis confirms isn't just the first page statement. It's actually, she says, a very lengthy document, 18 to 20 pages long. But voice backers, well, they don't want to talk about the full statement, the whole box and dice, because that's about voice treaty and truth. The very things that the PM and Chris Kenny don't want you to understand, because if you did understand them, you wouldn't vote for their voice. Now, it's all there, including reparations, calculated perhaps on Australia's GDP, paid to Aboriginal people, of course, once treaties are concluded. That's all spelt out on page 19. Then there's the Treaty Commission, or the Makarrata Commission they like to call it, established to act as an umpire sitting above the Parliament in treaty negotiations. That's all there in the diagrams on page 24. There's the guaranteed budget for the Voice with, and I quote, access to its own independent secretariat, experts and lawyers. That's on page 18. And as for this notion that none of this is part of the ULURU statement, here's a copy of what the FOI applicant wrote to the Indigenous Agency on July 19, and I'll quote what he said. For the avoidance of doubt, I am seeking access to the complete, unredacted document that is referred to as the ULURU Statement from the Heart. Now, the official reply comes back on July 20, and it says, and I quote, the information you have requested is published on the NIAA disclosure log as Document 14. Now, that's the exact same Document 14 that I revealed in my Australian column last week, that I showed you here last Thursday, again last night, again tonight. The same document that the Prime Minister and Chris Kenny want you to think has nothing at all to do with this referendum. Only that's not what Aboriginal leader Megan Davies says, and that's not what the lawyers in the FOI section in the PM's own Indigenous agency have confirmed in writing, is it? Because they then go on to say this. On the same day that the FOI applicant was told by the agency that Document 14, all 26 pages of it, was in fact the full ULURU Statement from the Heart, the applicant wrote back and asked, look, to be crystal clear, can you confirm that the document you referred me to, Document 14, is the ULURU Statement from the Heart? And the official then replied the following day saying this, and I quote, this is to confirm that the extracts in the Referendum Council's final report are taken from the ULURU Statement to the Heart. Now, that's all black and white from the FOI lawyers in the government's own Indigenous agency. So let's now go to the Referendum Council's final report. The report highlights at the beginning the one-pager. But then from page 16 onwards, the report provides pages and pages of what it says are, and again I quote, extracts from the ULURU Statement from the Heart. Now, these pages are identical with the full statement released under FOI, Document 14, and referenced in the correspondence from the lawyers that I've just quoted to you. And it begins with this quote, the invasion that started at Botany Bay is the origin of the fundamental grievance between the old and new Australians. Elsewhere it says, and I quote, Makarrata is another word for treaty. It is the culmination of our agenda. It quotes, and I'll say it again, any voice to Parliament should be designed so that it could support and promote a treaty-making process. That, and I quote again, treaty would be the vehicle to achieve self-determination, autonomy and self-government. Again, I quote, the true history of colonisation must be told, the genocides, the massacres, the wars and the ongoing injustices and discrimination. This, I repeat, is all in the Statement from the Heart that the Prime Minister has committed his government to in full no less than 34 times. Now, I suspect the Prime Minister has never actually read it. After all, Bill Shorten was the Labor leader at the time the ULURU Statement was delivered. But whether he's read it or not doesn't matter, because that's what Albanese has committed to implement in full. And he and Chris Kenny can't credibly claim that the FOI lawyers in the government's own Indigenous agency are somehow wrong when they confirm what I have told you. Now, sure, the PM can throw around all the slurs he wants in question time, but I've worked in government a long time. I know my way around government documents. He knows that, and so does his office. Now, in politics, it's not the conspiracy that gets you, it's the cover-up. And there's been one almighty cover-up here, from the top of the government right to the Prime Minister and down to sections of the media, to let you think that the ULURU statement is just a benign little one-pager with lots of fine words and lots of signatures that's now been turned into a poster. Well, it's not. It's not. The woman who helped write the ULURU statement, Megan Davis, she says it's not. The government's own official Indigenous lawyers say that's not true. Meaning all Australians need to read and understand the full ULURU statement before they vote. The very fact that the government now wants to try and bury this statement says everything about what will happen to this country if the Prime Minister's voice gets up. Voice, treaty, truth. Now, all I can say is thank God for this FOI.